Hey everyone, welcome to Nurse Talk. I'm Mike.
And I'm Chris.
And today we're doing a full series review on Loki. That's right, the full Disney Plus show, Loki. All of 6 episodes. Instead of doing an episode recap, we thought since it's such a short show, we kind of give you our thoughts. Now, Chris watched it week by week.
Yeah.
And I watched it, I binged it all in essentially 2 nights to kind of see if I would get a different perspective on how I like the show or if it was best watched kind of sparingly. So with that being said, Chris, why don't you give us our spoiler-free review or thoughts on Loki?
Yeah, overall, I thought it was a decent series. By watching it week by week, there are some weeks where I was like, oh, I can't wait for the next one. Maybe next time we'll switch the roles. You can do week by week and I'll binge it. I prefer to binge watch shows when possible, I guess, just so I can get it all in one timeline kind of thing and follow up. Find it a little bit easier that way. So, but for the most part, it was decent watching week by week. And overall, I thought the story was decent. Maybe was expecting a little bit more, but there is a season 2 that they announced, so that's exciting. So they have to leave some surprises, obviously, and some different storylines. So yeah, I found it nice. There's some parts that we'll get into later on that I really, really liked about the show, and I thought it was very creative. Typical Marvel, thinking ahead and bringing past and future things together. Very well done that way, for sure.
Yeah, so me being the one that binged it, I watched the first 3 episodes, maybe 4 episodes in one night, and then the final couple episodes in the last night. And I can say that while I enjoyed the show, there definitely was the first episode and the end of the 4th episode really got me excited about what's happening next? Yeah. Episode 2 and especially 3 just didn't have it there for me. I was kind of maybe because I was binging it, I was just like, oh my gosh, I just kind of feel like we need to get forward, to get moving. What's going on here? Yeah. I wasn't as excited in those episodes. And then the finale definitely had a nice, I enjoyed the way it ended and the possibilities as you mentioned. Yeah. But again, I just thought there'd be more to it. I expected a little bit more, and we'll come to the reasons why when we get into the spoilers. And when comparing it to other series, I just felt like, again, they were all building up to something, and I just felt like what they were building up to, while cool, I felt like there could have been more than what we got. Now, with that being said, I can stress that I enjoyed what we got at the end. I just felt like there should have been something else, because I feel like season 2, whether they had a season 2 or not, was of no consequence, because again, this could just literally spin off into movies now. Yeah. There's no rhyme or reason to watch another season. I kind of felt like, again, there wasn't that hook that I need to see what happens in season 2. And again, we'll get into spoilers as to why that is. But overall, I enjoyed the series. Definitely not my favorite of the 3 Marvel series thus far. But it definitely was enjoyable, and I can't wait to watch the 2nd season. I think there is a lot of potential.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so I guess we'll jump right into the spoiler section. If you haven't watched Loki, please stop right now, come back. We'll go through different moments of the episodes. We're not going to break down every episode, but just go through the major plot points that we remember and what we find important. And then come back and watch it and give us your thoughts and your comments below, what you thought. Maybe we completely missed something in our breakdown, but with that being said, let's jump into the spoiler section. So Loki takes off.
Yeah, so it pretty much takes off right after Endgame, where he takes the Tesseract and vanishes off into somewhere else. So we see him land in a deserted planet, kind of get greeted by locals, and then a portal pops up with people called the Time Variants. What was it? TVA. Mm-hmm. So they were the officials of those. They showed their first kind of thing where he tries to do some magic. They kind of slow him down, and she hits him with something, and his face just kind of goes slow motion with seeing all the body parts. So I thought that was kind of cool seeing that happen. So they do take him back to the TVA, and we're kind of introduced to this, I don't know, empty, some sort of government facility where you're going to get your license or whatever it is. You're getting processed, you're getting the pictures taken. You have to sign. He has to sign off on everything he says, and he says, "Really?" And then it prints off another paper, and he has to sign that off. So they're kind of going through the process, and there's one point where he's kind of being screened to see, and they ask him, "Are you like a robot or a symbiote of any kind?" He's like, "No," and then he kind of second guesses himself, like, "What happens if I am?" He says, "Oh, you'll be destroyed going through the scanner," kind of thing. So eventually he walks through it, and they get to the part where he kind of goes like an amusement ride where he's going through the line, and they have these TVs with this cartoon clock that explains what the TVA is and how it's a timeline authority trying to make sure the timeline is stays to a certain way that certain people deem appropriate and what it should be, and eventually goes over and kind of gets a court date kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So he's judged, and then is told that he was going to be, what do they say it is? Essentially, they stick him with a prod and they disintegrate. Yeah. But this is where the character Mobius, played by Owen Wilson, comes in and says he wants to use this Loki variant to help catch a different Loki variant, which we find out later on. So I thought it was cool where Owen Wilson takes him into his office, kind of explains what's going on. Loki's not quite sure still what's going on, but he shows him like a film of like his past, and so we see parts of movies that we've seen, like the first Avengers. We see him and how the Avengers are acting and how he's shown there and stuff like that. So I thought that was very cool by Marvel to bring parts of the old MCU movies that we've seen. Mm-hmm. And the ability, what I thought after the first episode, of how they can manipulate it or change it for future, bring characters back, bring new characters in, change characters, especially if they lose contracts with actors or whoever it may be. This could be their excuse to switch up Captain or bring Iron Man back, or whoever it may be, Scarlet Witch, if they don't do their legal issues with Black Widow and Scarlett Johansson. I meant Black Widow, not Scarlet Witch. Black Widow for Scarlett Johansson, and how they can kind of have that freedom and make kind of reset Avengers in the MCU without officially, how Spider-Man, they kind of did a whole new film, and without completely resetting it, making it worth, make sense to reset it.
Yep. And they talk about variants, or basically someone who differs or kind of goes off the beaten path of what's supposed to happen on the timeline. They create a variance, or basically a branching path on the timeline. And when that person does enough change, enough destruction, then that timeline, that change cannot be altered, it cannot be reset. And their job is to reset them, usually by erasing the person, erasing or deleting everything that has changed back to the way it was supposed to be, so that everything can continue as planned. And so these variants, when they go off, the TVA's job is to capture them, delete, essentially erase or destroy everything that was out of place in order for the timeline to be kept straight. We find out later on that the reason they do this is because a long time ago there was a bunch of timelines, that's right, a bunch of different universes or multiverse, whatever you want to call it. And because of this, there was a war that had taken place of, certain people from one branch or universe wanting to fight and conquer people from the other universe and trying to take over, and this caused a whole war. So ultimately, these leaders, they look like lizard people, had come and were basically told to be in control of this timeline and made everyone follow a strict set of rules, and if they deviated outside the rules, they would be destroyed or whatnot. And that was to keep peace and harmony. And so, these TVA people follow blindly and loyally to these three higher deity lizard-faced people.
Kind of people. Yeah. But they're told that they were born in the TVA universe.
That's right.
And that, they were specially picked or, have grown up there, and this is their job, and this is what they're supposed to do, and this is their meaning in life, pretty much. But we find out later on through Loki and so the variant that they're chasing is a version of Loki, so that's why they want to use the Loki that we know from the MCU movies and universe to try and track them down.
Because he's going to be deleted or destroyed anyway. So he says, "When we'll get some use out of him." Because and of course he's trying to earn his freedom. Yeah. And he says, maybe if you do very well, you can earn your freedom. But he stumbles upon the fact that he always loses, he always fails.
That's right. Yeah.
He was meant to die, because I think he saw the Thanos of him dying.
Yeah, so they do show in the future where, he gets his neck snapped essentially by Thanos, and then Thor and the ship all blow up in there, and Hulk with that fight. But yeah, so, it was interesting to see the TVA. So Sylvie is the girl variant of Loki, and we find out throughout the show that they're different. There's like a crocodile Loki. There's the old like comic style Loki. There's like a kid Loki. There's lots and lots of different types of Lokis out there, just like everyone else. Different timelines, multiverses, and a lot of them. So we find out when they are disintegrated, they aren't actually killed. They're brought to this universe where the Destroyer, I think it is, that cloud kind of
Devourer or something.
Devourer.
Yeah, this big dragon cloud monster that basically eats you, and if he eats you, then you're literally gone forever.
Yeah, which I believe was in Doctor Strange, was it not?
I think Strange it was one that shown.
Was trying to, and he kept looping it over.
That was Dormammu.
Oh yeah,
but I think when he was traveling through all the portals, we saw glimpses of different things. I don't know if it was shown this or not.
Yeah, I can't remember, but so and then this creature demolishes anything that's over there. So Owen Wilson's character Mobius is actually dissolved because he takes sides with Loki, because Loki finds out through Sylvie, and her power is kind of reading memories and pretty much memories of people and their experiences. And that's how she finds out through one of the guards that she took over that they had a past before on a different Earth or dimension.
That they are themselves variants.
They were, variants. And then they were brought in, kind of mind wiped and told that they were born at the TVA location, and that is who they were. So, Mobius finds this out. He sees a recording of them getting rid of the evidence of the old guard who was, telling the other leaders that, she remembers her past now. And then she was kind of quieted by being taken out of the picture. Yeah. Mobius kind of switches his comm with the female lead and head of the TVA to find out that she was taken care of, and that's what Loki was telling the truth, because he has a little bit of trust issues with Loki because he's notorious for backstabbing, betraying, and putting his needs over others. Yeah. But he finally, kind of takes his side, but he's found out and is brought to the Devourer world in that way. Mm-hmm. Did I miss anything so far that's important that you can think of?
I mean, the only other big thing is that they find out so after trying to capture her, they go to that medieval times thing, and then Loki comes up with the idea of how they're going to find her, why she keeps disappearing, and they can't track her, why she's not creating branches, is because she keeps appearing in cataclysmic events that basically cause catastrophic death and like destruction. So it doesn't matter what she does, or this person that they don't know it's a female Loki does at the time. They can do as much destruction as long as whatever they do gets wiped out anyway. Exactly. It doesn't cause a branch. And so she keeps appearing, like, for example, right before Pompeii happens, they kind of work there to prove his theory. Is they go, look, the world's going to end. He starts smashing stuff and stealing stuff, and people go running. And he's like, it doesn't matter. Like, once the fire comes, it kills everyone. There's no one that could have told, or, nothing can change because everything gets wiped out. And so when proving this theory, they realize that they have to narrow down which and like kind of crazy events could the variant be hiding in. And they pinpoint it, they go find it, and they find out obviously she's a girl. And Loki and her, I guess, have a conversation, and it seems to be like he's joining her, so almost as if he backstabbed the TVA. I can't remember if this is episode 3.
Yeah, so she kind of like plays around with them a little bit, takes over people's bodies and minds, and kind of throws them around and ragdolls them. But then eventually she shows herself, she goes into a portal, and he decides that he wants to find out more about her and try and get his own freedom without trusting the TVA, and jumps in behind her and leaves Mobius and the other TVA agents behind them.
And so they end up on this planet, which looks like there's like some fair going on, and the world's about to end with some meteor shower or whatnot. And so they're there, and something happens. They can't escape. I can't remember, the ship breaks or something like that.
Yeah. So he had the comm that can take you to different things, but by keeping it away from her, he ends up breaking it. And then they are trying. I think one point there was a rocket ship that they were trying to get to. It ends up exploding, so they're pretty much doomed. They're sitting in the middle waiting for the planets. I think it was a meteor shower kind of thing that destroys the planet. And all of a sudden a portal shows up, and it's the TVA.
And they're able to find them. Basically, they have feelings for each other, and they essentially fall in love. I don't even know if they actually kiss here, or they just hold hands or something. But they're basically talking to each other about their feelings for each other. And I guess that love or whatever is causing some sort of like weird phenomenon that they're able to find them, track them down, get them out. They get captured. She's basically being sent to be terminated and questioned. And so obviously Loki's telling him all the stuff about them being variants and all that stuff. So Owen Wilson does his own investigative stuff. This stuff happens. They're taking to basically to the Lizardhead people, I guess, right? They're being marched there, and Sylvie and Loki get taken there. I guess they're going to be destroyed or whatever in front of them, or being made of an example or something like that. Yeah. And then the guard, I guess, that was taken over by her betrays the TVA and helps her escape. They fight. They do a lot of damage. Everyone dies with the exception of the main leader, and they destroy the head of one of these things and turn out it's a robot. Yeah, it's fake. It's not a real. These lizard people aren't real. There's something else going on here. And so when the leader realizes that, they do some more fighting. Loki gets disintegrated and sent who knows where, because they don't know that. She assumes he's dead. Yes. And so I guess Sylvie is forced to work with the leader for a certain extent before that she kind of escapes, and they end up fighting, and she ends up...
Yeah, so the leader said that there's that they're not destroyed, that they're sent to a different planet, and that she can find a way. So she's trying to talk to the animated clock to get some information. It's like an AI computer technology.
It's almost alive. It's weird.
Yeah. So, she's trying to play like she's helping her out, but I think Sylvie catches on that there's no records of what it is and who she wants to go to the beginning of the time to see who the real person behind the TVA and the timeline is, and she finds out through some words that the lead girl says that she's kind of lying and waiting for backup to show up. Mm-hmm. So she ends up jumping behind the judge bench. And she does have one of those shocking prods, and in the end, she's surrounded, but she decides to prod herself and go after and try and find Loki.
And then, of course, Loki's there with the other variants, which you mentioned. One of which is a kid who's the only Loki in all of the variants that was successfully able to kill Thor. Yes. So he was very that's why he's kind of leading this misfit band of Lokis, and so as we're going through. And they're coming up with a plan to figure out what they do. They end up in the base, their kind of home base, and they're coming up with a plan. And there's some funny conversation between the crocodile and the big black Loki, who has, I guess, I don't know, it's Thor's hammer, but he has a hammer. And so he comes and bites his hand, and there's all this fighting and stuff like that. And it's just this hilarity of how they're all acting towards each other, how they can backstab and be
they all look for themselves.
Look after themselves. It's whatever's in their best interest. And so then they come up with a plan that they're going to try to go and destroy the Devourer or Destroyer, whatever his name is, because that's probably the only way for them to not die. They're, he must be destroyed. There must be a way to kill him. And I think one of them said something about
I think it was protecting a castle or a house that a town, part of the town. Yeah. That they want to get to, but no one could get to. Correct. I think that's where the main leader and the Watcher person is. The beginning of time kind of leads them back to that area, is what they find out.
And so then a whole bunch of Lokis show up, and one that looks exactly like Tom Hiddleston is played by himself. Ends up there, and he's the mayor of this place, and a bunch of Lokis, and there turns out the black guy betrayed them and was basically led them to these Lokis for a reward to rule this planet or whatever, this place that they're at. And of course, you can't trust the Loki, and so they fight. The crocodile jumps and bites his hand off, and then all the Lokis start fighting. And so one of the Lokis is great at the astral projection. So he ends up making copies of them, and they all run out during the scuffle. Now,
so it's the young Loki, it's the old original type Loki, and then
Tom Hiddleston and the crocodile. And they eventually end up meeting up with Sylvie, because Sylvie gets saved.
Sylvie gets saved by Mobius in a car going away from the Devourer.
And they all end up meeting with this group. Yeah. Now, the funny thing is up to this point, there was a conversation before he got sent back when he was speaking to Mobius about the different powers of Loki. And he says, what was the word I just used? Making a copy. Projection and... there's another word he used. One is making a copy of yourself, and one is duplicating yourself. So one is a fake, a mirror, an image, and one is actually duplicating yourself, so that you're able to simultaneously do two copies of yourself, so that you can, they both have minds, and you can do separate things that are not smoke and mirrors kind of thing. One's an illusion, one's like real.
Yeah, one you can feel, and the other one you can kind of poke your hand.
And this Loki can make, like the Loki we know of can make copies. Like he can do almost everything to a certain extent, but he's really good at making copies of himself. And obviously the astral projections. This other one is really good at making realistic astral projections or a fake image of themselves. And so their plan is to go after this thing. Sylvie's special power is being able to take over the mind and control someone, and she actually ends up teaching Loki because Loki asks her to teach her. Yeah. And they have a conversation about it in a previous episode anyway. So she decides if she can get close and touch the beast, which she apparently barely did and kind of felt his brain, she knows it's alive, they can take control of him, and then they can stop him from eating, and then they can get to where they need to. So she goes out. Loki decides he doesn't want to sacrifice her. She goes out with her. They hold hands and do it together, and they are able to be strong enough to subdue the beast, all because the old Loki creates an image to keep them like guarded or to get the beast to turn around so that they can grab its tendril or whatever you want to call it. So
and essentially it sacrifices himself because it does go after and destroys him and the projection of the castle and town that he creates.
Yes.
But this allows Sylvie and the Loki that we know to go through, kind of find this old abandoned house, walk in, and then this is where they are introduced to...
He Who Remains is officially what his name is. He says he goes by many names, Conqueror, Jerk, and then he lists a bunch of stuff off. But we've come to understand that he is supposed to be the MCU's version of...
A variant of
Kang the Conqueror. And so while he doesn't give himself an official name, his whole mission is to keep the sacred timeline running smooth, running the course that he's come up with. And he's talked about in the past, there were a bunch of versions of him. He found out a way to make connections with these other variants of himself, and they did the same thing. And while they all came up with like these ideas and these technological advancements, and which helped kind of lead to the TVA, there were a lot that were not pure of heart, and some that wanted to conquer and take over and rule, and so that caused the war, and so all of them died, and he was the last one that remained. Correct. And so he was the sole like the ruler essentially of this timeline, and supposedly he's of pure of heart. At least he came to allude to that. Of like, it could be worse. If
he's trying to do it for the better of everything, is what he's saying to them.
And so because they wanted to come kill him, and he always knows what's going to happen before they do it, because he can see the timeline up to a certain point. And he said he was interested in them because something about their relationship or something was different that he couldn't see, or
he wanted them to take over his part. Because I thought it was interesting because they're talking back and forth. They try and kill him a few times. He avoids it every time. He gets him to sit down, kind of talk him through all the past and what he's been through and how this has come to fruition. And then all of a sudden it clicks, and he's like, "This is it.
I can't see anymore. This is where you make the decision, and I don't know where we're gonna go from here," kind of thing. And so Sylvie and Loki are arguing because one wants to kill him. Sylvie wants to kill him, thinks he's full of it, and this will stop this nonsense. And Loki's like, wait a minute, but this could be true. And he says, if you kill me, you're going to cause a lot more branching paths. There are going to be more copies of me, and now an evil one could take over, and it's going to cause chaos. And so Loki's hesitant, and she thinks he's hesitant because he wants to kill her and take over. And so now they're bickering because of the backstabbing. So they have this fight. Ultimately, how does the fight end? This is where it gets blurry for me.
So I believe they kiss. Sylvie and Loki, and then she
stabs him.
I think she stabs him, which sends him back somehow to the TVA.
Yes, and then
was it by killing him, or was it by sending him with? I don't remember.
I think it was a portal. She doesn't kill him, but she kills the He Who Remains. And that's because but does she say she wants to rule? She wants to take over, or she's just killing him just to end it?
I think she just wants to end it. I don't think she wants to rule, but I think she might have to rule.
Yeah, and after doing this, we see at the TVA, back at the TVA, that all these branches are appearing, and what he said was true, and now essentially this births the multiverse.
Yeah.
And this is where everything is going to take off, and now we can have versions of all sorts of superheroes, all different variants and stuff like that can come together, and like you said, people who die cannot be alive, and they can bring people in. And are they going to leave it as a multiverse? Or are they going to bring it back together? Where's the plan as we go forward?
And I know a lot of the movies going forward kind of have multiverse into it.
With Doctor Strange,
the Spider-Man one is supposed to be in December. Some sort of the three Spider-Mans: Tobey Maguire,
Andrew Garfield,
and Tom
Holland. Yep.
Coming together, and we
as well as other things.
Yeah,
we might see a couple other Spider-Man show up that might be surprises. We know that Doctor Strange's movie is going to be about that, and we kind of saw the beginning of it with Scarlet Witch in WandaVision, and kind of where we're going there with like, oh, this Peter's not the Peter you know, and there's like different things kind of going on.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot kind of going in the future with the multiverse, which I think is fantastic.
Yeah.
And they can do, the world's your oyster essentially. Like you can do anything with it, whatever you think. So they're kind of dropping like this will be the future. And when he goes back into the TVA, he runs back to Morbius, who went back as well through a portal to try and stop everything and explain what's happening. So he runs to Morbius and the guard that who changed and helped them out in the end. So both of them were there, and he says, something's wrong, this is what happened. And then he says, what are you talking about? And we see a statue of Krang the Conqueror.
He who remains a statue. It's no longer the Three Lizard people because things have changed. Yeah. The timeline has changed now. It's as if those guys didn't exist, and there's been some differences. So it's odd that it's not Sylvie.
No.
But it is him, and so we kind of see the truth, and these people are kind of oblivious to kind of what happened.
That's
because when timelines change, those who are outside the timeline see the effects. Those who are in it don't. Like, or at least that's how the Flash has had it explained, right? With the Flashpoint, right? Yeah. Like he comes back, but everyone else doesn't realize things have changed, and he has to kind of like wake them up. So it's very interesting to kind of see where we go from here. There were some really cool Easter eggs dotted throughout. We saw Throg in a little jar as they're going underground, which again may show now with this multiverse him come free, have a different Thor. We heard rumors of Beta Ray Bill making his appearance.
Yeah.
And that would make sense now with the multiverse. Here's a different Thor that's going to make it their way in. We have obviously these different Lokis. We know the Spider-Man situation. So there's a lot of possibilities of where we go. Yeah. Bringing people that are dead back, which is awesome. At the same time, it kind of makes me wonder, like, are they going to go with, like, could we see what if stuff kind of getting intertwined with, like, canon stuff? Like, could we see, like, a variant of, Captain Britain show up because Captain America is no longer there, or the Steve Rogers Captain America is no longer there, and she gets pulled in because they need her, and boom, now we have a Captain Britain as part of the official Avengers. Yeah. Whatever episodes they think make a lot of sense, and now with the multiverse, they can now officially make some of these realities canon, which is really cool. Or have our Avengers jump and go into these other areas because they have to fix something that'll mess up their timeline. So it's very interesting to see where we go. That's the thing that I enjoyed about the series, the possibilities. But I felt the fight at the end wasn't what I expected. I didn't feel like it was like a Falcon Winter Soldier fight, a really epic moment. I didn't feel like it was WandaVision was still let down, but even that felt more epic to what we saw here, in my opinion. I just expected a big moment. Like every superhero moment, there's always that big clash, that big amazing CG fight scene at the end where they kind of overcome and they win. And we didn't really get that. It was a decent fight scene between them, but it just, I don't know, it just lacked it for me. But I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, for me, I was kind of hoping it would explode this huge multiverse, and we get a little bit more insight into that, and instead of just he who remains explaining what happened, maybe seeing more of the fighting scenes, the battles, the war, things like that. So, and I found throughout the show there were what I would call maybe filler episodes where it's like, we could have gone without seeing that episode, or these things couldn't have happened, especially for a 6-episode show. You expect something that has less episodes to be, jam everything in, make it really exciting, make it really important, make every episode count. But I didn't find this one was. I found some were a lot slower than others. So, I was expecting more of the storyline to be more, more exciting, more worth it to me and my time. But I still enjoyed where it went, but I was just maybe expecting more from Loki and the possibilities. I thought the possibilities could have been, they could have played around with other multiverses as they went through, like little Easter eggs of, they went back to this time, and they see some flashback like we did in Endgame, and then they're kind of tweaking things along the way that changes it or whatever it may be. But in that regard, they lacked a lot. But I'm hoping season 2, I'll watch it and hoping that maybe we'll see some of this stuff from season 1 into the movies, and it will make more sense for the Loki show when we look back on it.
Yeah, like, so when they're in this realm, this TVA, no magic powers work. Loki doesn't have his powers. They're just regular people. And, they have basically copies of all the Infinity Stones, and they're basically worthless. They're literally called paperweights because they have no place there. Because again, when people go outside the realm, they have these abilities to freeze people in time because they essentially control time. They can freeze them and delete them and take them away, and so the stones. They only allow like the 6 stones to exist in the timeline. Whenever someone takes it that isn't supposed to, they have all these copies there, which are worthless. Now I thought, okay, this means that someone can take some, and now with all these branching timelines, all these weird things can now take place, right? But they had multiple soul stones, multiple different stones, time stones. Like Doctor Strange has time; it can reverse time. You think that what makes this realm like essentially disable power? I don't remember if they specifically explained why that is, and if that's the case, Kang has. His power, he who remains has the power to like know what's happening before it happens, but then the Lokis were able to use their power there with him in that fight because they were like
but they're on like a different kind of planet, I guess.
But it just I wish they'd explain it. Like, why does the powers not work? Is there a force field that's causing it? Like, what gives them this power? Like, he explained them they develop all this technology and stuff with all the brains of all of his variants. It's fine, but like, why is it ultra powerful? Why does it negate magic and DNA and all the other
everything
stuff?
That's been the strength in the universe.
Yeah, so I would like to get more information on why that is, what makes this realm special, how is that possible. They didn't go into it, but it was cool to see like the Infinity Stones and like all the stuff that was.
He's like, you have lots of like he's just grabbing like. His eyes kind of light up like a kid in a candy store, but then find out that they're useless and paperweights unless he took them to go to a different planet or something.
Exactly.
Control.
Which I wouldn't be surprised if he snags them to make something hilarious happen in season 2. We'll have to wait and see. It's Loki after all. They also had a really cool thing showing him stuck in a time loop with Lady Sif. His punishment, his jail, was basically him getting beaten up over and over Lady Sif because of what he did.
Cut her hair?
Yeah, he did something that made her upset, and so I guess in the past she had come and gave him a punch, but they basically put him in a time loop, living that time over and over. So she keeps coming out, and he tries to reason with her. He tries all different methods to like make her not hit him, and at one point he comes very, very close, and she still manages to hit him or turn around and hit him in the back, and it's like it's a torture. Not only because it's like, oh my gosh, I have to live through this over and over again, but not just the physical pain, but just the monotony of like, oh my gosh, again, like enough. Just I don't want to see this anymore.
Which again,
I can see that as torture.
Yeah, which again reminded me of Doctor Strange, where he kept rewinding time. You can kill me as often as you want. I'll just come back and we'll just loop it until
because that guy lives outside of time, so he has no idea what time is, and he puts him in like a time constraint, so he doesn't like his power doesn't. He can't do anything, and it's like an interesting like play on time. And this was the same situation, and I'm interested to know more about the time and like the power of it and why it's so powerful and kind of how it all works. I don't know if they can get into it without really confusing people because it is time travel and all that stuff is already a confusing topic. Yeah. But again, overall, there was a lot of cool Easter eggs, a lot of moments with stuff. And like I said, the ending opens up a lot of possibilities. We know that Loki did fall in love. He does have a heart because a lot of people said like you have no heart, you have no soul, you don't care about anyone but yourself. Yeah. And then he and Sylvie kind of prove that not to be the case, or at least they're special. And I think they're gonna show more about what that is. Maybe that love is gonna turn into something else, some power, some new thing. We're gonna have to wait and see. But I don't know. Like it was an enjoyable show. I binged it, so there were moments where I was like, oh my gosh, like let's get going, and I was able to get to the end, but. I could imagine that if I did week to week, there would be like after week 2 and after week 3, I'd kind of be like, okay, whatever. Like
near the end, interested. I think after episode 4,
when they killed the robot head and things were kind of like, okay, what's going on? Who's in charge?
But I think I stopped after episode 3 and then waited 2 weeks and then watched 2 and then did week by week. So I didn't do every week. I did skip a week, and then do 2 in a row. But I think that helped a little bit to get through. But yeah, it was an interesting show. I enjoyed it still, but it wasn't something I would rewatch unless there's more things that come out in the future where I'm like, oh,
let me go back and see.
Yeah, let me go back or watch this episode or see what it was all about. But overall, it's not one that I would go back to. But I enjoyed watching it, and it served its purpose as watching something once a week and enjoying it.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that being said, do we recommend you watch Loki? I think it's definitely an important step for a lot of the most immediate movies this year and early next year coming up. I definitely think it's going to really blow up as to where we're going to see Phase 5 go. Will it introduce Young Avengers? That's a huge possibility. Yeah. Are we going to see old Avengers and new Avengers come to course? I think there's even like an Avengers War where they kind of like fight, not Civil War, but like a different one where there's like one from one universe fights the one from another universe. And so I think we're going to see that kind of some of that stuff kind of play out, which I think will be really cool. So that's very exciting. And if you want to kind of get to the grassroots of how that's come to be and kind of what King the Conqueror is and who is he, because he's a big villain in Marvel.
Yeah, I think he's supposed to be brought up as the next Thanos kind of villain for Marvel, where different movies will kind of allude to him being the main villain.
Yeah, we also know the Kree were a huge villain, branching off of Captain Marvel and the Skrull War. There's that possibility of playing out. So there's a lot of things that they can draw upon, and I think that the future is very interesting, especially with them introducing all these other heroes like She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel and like all these other ones that can literally push us in a whole new direction. So I'm very excited for that.
Yeah.
But again, I have to say that while I enjoyed Loki, I don't feel like it was an amazing show. I felt like a lot of people online were saying it was so great, best Marvel show by far.
Yeah, I saw that as well, and yeah, I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah,
but I mean, obviously they have the following. It got the ratings, and they're going to make a season 2. So a lot of people love Tom Hiddleston and the other actors and actresses. So it was great that they did it. I love seeing him as well. But yeah, I would not agree with them and say that it was one of the best ones in my opinion for the Marvel shows, but to each their own. If they like it, perfect, and we'll keep reviewing different shows.
Yeah, shows and movies, and kind of give you our opinions. Right. But let us know what you think. Drop a comment below. Did we miss something? We try to touch on the Easter eggs that we saw, like Throg and Infinity Stones and all this other kind of stuff. But I'm sure there's some things we probably completely overlooked that maybe might suggest some other things that are happening. So feel free to let us know. Give us a thumbs up, subscribe to the video, let us know if you enjoyed the series or didn't like the series. We'd love to hear from you. You can shoot us an email at nerdstalkinfo@gmail.com. And as always, friends, stay nerdy.